Hello, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Ain't This the Fun podcast, episode 13. It's unlucky, but we're gonna make it lucky. Unlucky. How about that? Does that logic work?
Why not?
Okay. We're with our usual bi-weekly guest, Erik Childress, movie knowledge extraordinaire, fest master, friend, and all-around good guy.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you can't tell in my voice a little bit that I am on the tail end of a cold that I've had since last Friday. So I don't mean to open up the show with a cold mention, but the fact that it's on the tail end of the cold, it seems that I'm in because normally colds, and I mean, I'm not a doctor by any stretch of the imagination, but
no, you're not Dr.
No, I'm not actually. But the general, and this is probably true for most people. Again, I'm not a doctor, but the general stages of the cold, I can set to a watch, pretty much. Maybe not to a watch, because sometimes it might take an extra day or something like. But it's always starts with a sore throat, moves into sniffles, blowing nose. Then you get to the phlegm stage and the coughing, and it all kind of mixes together there at the end. And that's where I am today. I'm at the tail end of there's a cough, but not many of those today. And the phlegm, the lovely phlegm stage. It's always my favorite because it's that last bit of crap that's just sitting right there in the middle of your chest, and you feel if you can just get that shit out, that's the cure.
I'll get the cough at the end. That's how I know mine's usually breaking. I'll get the cough at the end. I don't always get the phlegm.
Yeah.
Phlegm talk, episode 13.
That's right.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I don't normally get that. But it's always good. I look forward to the cough, as long as my cough doesn't then last 6 more weeks of the, hey, in the middle of a conversation.
Yeah. See, I had that really I didn't have like the horrific that's good. I'm making myself cough now. But like when I was sleeping the other night, look what I'm doing to myself now.
You're gonna get dry mouth.
You're right. When I started coughing, I had that where it hurt to cough.
Yeah.
And that was like, oh shit. But that I woke up and I was fine.
Good.
Yeah. So, but that.
Yeah. Probably gonna get a lot of that the more you talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thankfully, I haven't had a cold. No cold. But now that I say that, I'm sure I'll get one with my luck. That's just the way it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. This week's been a little interesting. I started a new job, so it's readjusting the schedule and sleeping and all that kind of stuff. So it's a little weird and hectic. But like I was telling you a little bit before this, for the first time in my life, I'm getting in all kinds of steps. You hear all these people talk about steps. My pedometer said I do this many steps. I track my steps. This new job I have involves a lot of movement, and boy, are my steps increasing.
Yeah.
They went from a lump of crap on a couch when you're free time, when I had free time, to now anywhere from 13 to 1,600 steps in 7 hours. And that's not even a full day. So I'm anticipating I'm going to have big jacked legs. I'm going to be able to bench press a military press a truck or something with my legs. But yeah, adjusting to that. I literally just got home a little bit ago before this. So weird day. It's not my normal thing, but it's because it's new. I'm adjusting. So so this is what we normally do. We want things to be positive, right? Or no?
We try.
Okay, good. As you say, positivity and pop culture. I like that, so I'm going to keep using it. I want everybody to, if you're watching this live, hit subscribe there at the bottom. It's pretty easy. Just hit it, and that way you'll see when all the YouTube videos go up or I'm live. If you hit the little bell, you'll actually be notified. It'll actually notify your phone or other device that I'm going live or I just posted something. You can also hit the little chat button under there and chat with us live while we're here. And you can also then post a comment once it goes as archived. Like when we're done tonight, you can even talk later. Yeah, it's down there somewhere. You'll see buttons.
Yes.
But if you're listening to this on Apple iTunes, please go ahead, hit a button. If you're not subscribed, you can hit subscribe on Apple iTunes. All right. I don't think they actually call it subscribe anymore. I think they call it follow. I think they changed it.
Sure, they did.
Follow now to the podcast. And then it'll automatically download to your phone if you have it switched to that every time I post it. So if you like listening to it that way. And if not, or regardless, you can leave a comment. That would be appreciated. So thanks for that. But like we do on this podcast, we like to talk about 3 things that are positive, that make us happy, that make us smile, that give us a good time, because the last 25 months, I had to adjust it last one, 25 months has been a nightmare hellscape out there, and we all need something to bring us positivity and happiness, because without it, we'd all go crazy. So we're going to talk about 3 things that make us happy, and then we're going to talk about one more thing that we're looking forward to. How's that sound?
It sounds good to me.
All right. Yeah. You're used to this. So again, do you want me to go first, or would you like to go first?
I will go first.
Okay.
Make sure I can get through it without coughing too much. It's so stupid that like if I do nothing, like I managed to get through the weekend and do some work and stuff and whatnot with the cold after Friday, where I stayed in bed pretty much all day, except for recording a podcast with this voice. But it was like, as soon as I start to do anything, like my cold goes, excuse me, what are you doing? So I think, like, I haven't coughed. Like, I was at 2 screenings today. I would twice, maybe. Now, of course, I start talking and, bullshit. But anyway.
Dry mouth. Happens.
It's not even dry mouth. It's like this stupid, like, there's nothing stupid. It's dumb. Colds are dumb. Again, not a doctor, but colds are dumb.
I think that's the clinical term.
Dumb. D-U-M-B.
Colds are dumb.
They are. Well, let me tell you what I did while having this cold, which is dumb, is I was sitting in bed Friday, and enough to function, but not, I didn't want to do anything, so I just kind of sat in bed all day, except for recording a podcast, and was looking for things to watch on television, and I literally gravitated towards what we're doing right now. Like, what is just going to make me smile? What's going to make me happy right now? I didn't feel like watching an entire movie or even a TV show. Excuse me. So I ended up finding on Netflix, I went back and I watched. There we go.
That's a good one.
That was a good one. There you go.
For also, what is it? Mesophobia? Mouth noises?
What is that?
Mouth noises that make you, it's a phobia for mouth noises. I wonder if all the misophobian people are loving this.
I apologize to all of them. But I went back and I watched the last 2 Patton Oswalt stand-up specials.
Yes.
Yeah, and I've been a big fan of his work for a while. There was years ago. I was kind of familiar with him years ago, and then there was a documentary at South by Southwest years ago called "The Comedians of Comedy."
Yes.
Yeah, you're familiar with that.
Because it had Maria Bamford on it.
Oh, was she in that?
She has pink hair. It's when they're on tour, right?
Yeah, they're all. It's Oswald and Brian Posehn. Yeah. And
they go to a comic book store while they're on tour. Remember
that was Bamford?
The girl with the super bright pink hair is Maria Bamford way back in the day.
See, it's been a long time since I've seen that one. I remember specifically Oswald's stuff and Galifianakis's stuff, because he's there playing the piano and whatnot. So I specifically remember those 2 guys' sets. So Patton Oswalt, has become sort of a big thing again, and the second to last special that he did was such a kind of a game changer, is an overused term, but the one called Annihilation that was filmed here in Chicago, directed by Bobcat Goldthwait, actually, and it's the one where he ultimately he starts talking about the death of his wife. and he gets to that in the middle of it. And, comics, have, going back to Richard Pryor, maybe even earlier than that, they've, used comedy to find their way through grief, to find the comedy in it, but also just to lay themselves sort of very vulnerable and to talk about that kind of stuff. There's another one on HBO, another comic that's drawing a lot of praise right now, that I might talk about at some point. But watching Oswald go through that again, saying like he's going through it again, just watching the stand-up special. But that special is so damn funny. He talks about the greatest fight he's ever seen, which is a hilarious story. The way that he talks, he's kind of talking us through what happened, with his wife and how he had to deal with it with his daughter, and the build up to trying to shield his daughter from Mother's Day, and then it getting blown at the last possible minute by this old Polish woman at the airport. And the way that he spins that sort of awful, not her fault, but like, why are you doing this to us, lady? Like, why we had this and you blew it. And then he turns that into a bit about how she's just following him like this specter through all various Halloween holidays and stuff like that, is one of the funniest tragic bits of comedy I've ever heard. It's so funny. And then,
is that the one where he tells that the second to last, not the last one, but the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
Is that the one where he talks about the worst like paid gig he ever had, that was at a casino where they were like feeding him liquor, and or he went, it was like the drunk. He went, it turns out it was people who paid extra money to see him, but they also give them a ton of liquor.
No, that it's not in
Is
that
that
one.
The special previous to that?
That might be which I didn't go back and rewatch. So that might be that special. I'm not sure if it's that one or not. I think it's on this one is the one where he talks about being a DJ for a wedding company. That might have been the newer, the most recent one, which is called I Love Everything. And I went back and rewatched that one again too, back to back. And he's such a great storyteller. He has such a way with words. He's a geek like so many of us. So he has this great knowledge of pop culture and the way that he can spin all these things. I mean, that epic thing that he did on Parks and Recreation, that they couldn't even use the whole thing because it was such this amazing thing that you can now see on YouTube about crafting his own Star Wars storyline.
Well, not only that, he's at the town hall meeting, he's doing a filibuster. And part of his filibuster is he's talking about how using the gems of the Infinity Gauntlet, he can merge the Marvel universe and the Star Wars universe. But the whole thing is, isn't it something like 17 minutes long? They just asked for a few minutes, but it is enormous. And they just told him to go, and he improv that whole thing.
Yeah, he just filibustered, and it's just, and you see him collapse at the end, and everyone is just on their feet, just applauding it. And it's one take. It's one take. It's amazing. But you see bits of that during these shows and whatnot, and the bit in the new one, I Love Everything, where he talks about outside contractors working on his home, and he says there's always like the guy that's always setting things up for you. He's like, it's like, okay, I've got a guy. He's a little sketchy, but your wallpaper is gonna look amazing. And so he's like, oh, hell, okay, we'll hire the guy. And then the way, again, I can't even do it justice. I won't even, deem to do his material. But that sketch, which is actually like in the preview, is just makes me grin ear to ear. It's so funny. And again, he talks about a little bit of the relationship that he now has with Meredith Salinger, that, he married her, which that's a romance for the ages right there, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I just love watching them, seeing them talk about each other on Twitter now again, just is an instant smile maker as well. So yeah, no, I love Patton Oswalt, and I wish that he was out there. I mean, I know he's out there, but like that we get like a new special from him like every few months. I kind of need that. I really want that, because there's not a lot of comedians nowadays that I follow. There just aren't. And there have been some, and some have kind of flamed out for me pretty quickly, but Oswald has been kind of a staple of late, and I want more of him. He makes me laugh.
The good part is he seems to find his way into just about everything, like, because his love of pop culture has become so well known that people want him to be in their pop culture stuff.
Right.
So like even Marvel shoved him into the S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show. He played a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent stuck at an outpost that hadn't been talked to for a while, and he's just there by himself. And if I remember correctly, I'm sure I'm going to have part of this wrong, the character gets killed off, but everybody loved the character so much, they brought him back as his own twin. Like they loved him so much, they figured out a way to just have him around again. And then
he's on the new Mystery Science Theater too.
Yes, yeah, he play. I think he's the son of the original bad guy, right? Is that his character?
I think he's the son of Frank or something.
Yeah,
like that.
That's great. He's always popping up in random TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
He's always a funny, good time. He's a great guest on talk shows at night. Just type in YouTube, I'm sure, and there'd be a ton of clips of him showing up on some sort of talk show. Yeah. He's good. I like all of his specials. I particularly like that story about his the paid gig from hell, basically.
Okay.
He's like, oh wow, it's a big check, but I don't do them and this and that, and he goes and does it, and turns out the reason that it's so good is because people pay a whole lot of money. But as part of paying the whole lot of money is they treat him real nice. Well, turns out they give him like a 2-hour all-you-can-drink liquor buffet before the comedy special. So he walks out thinking he's just going to do a comedy special, and everyone's hammered out of their mind, the entire audience, because they've been feeding him liquor for 2 hours or an hour and a half or whatever it was. And he's like, it was the most miserable time I've ever had. But of course, the way he tells it, it's hilarious.
Yeah, and he's also, and he doesn't get enough credit for this. And it's probably because he doesn't do it that often. Yes, he gets these small little roles, and he pops up and he does goofy jokes and stuff like that. But he's actually an incredibly accomplished actor. And if you go back and you watch, there's a movie he did years ago called Big Fan, which is really interesting, where he kind of plays just like a psychotic, like a real, not a psychotic might be a strong word, but a really big New York Giants fan, and the lengths that he goes to show his fandom and stuff like that. And excuse me, Jason Reitman's Young Adult with Charlize Theron, amazing. He could have been nominated for that performance. He's that good. If you've never seen Young Adult with Charlize Theron and Patton Oswalt, it's one of the kind of unappreciated dark comedies of the last decade. She's great in it too. She should have been nominated. She didn't. But he's great. Like, one of the very unique relationship between the two of them in that movie. And he was just in this movie at South by Southwest that won the grand jury prize.
Wow.
Called I Love My Dad. And it's supposedly based on the real story that happened to the writer and director of the movie. He also stars in the movie basically as himself, as a guy whose dad is he is just kind of a big phony, a big con. Like, he'll do any shortcut he can find, he'll take it. Okay, and it's driven a wedge between the two of them, and he's estranged, separated from his wife and all that kind of stuff. And at the beginning of the film, the son has blocked him on social media, so he can't even connect to him on social media. So what does he do? He creates a fake online profile using the picture of a waitress that he met.
He's catfishing him.
Catfishing his own son into believing he's in this friendship with this waitress, or this, they don't call her waitress, I don't think, on the profile, but with this beautiful girl. And that's all I really need to say. And it is incredibly uncomfortably funny.
Okay.
Like, it's the kind of thing you kind of want to go ew for a lot of it, but Oswalt kind of gets you through it. And you can see it in his face and everything that he knows it's and everyone in the movie is like telling him like this is so wrong. With like everyone like to his face. Lil Howery plays his best friend. Rachel Dratch plays his girlfriend a bit. And it's very funny. I love my dad.
Well, I wrote down young adult. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's great.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great. My number one is something I've been looking forward to, and it finally came to pass. And that was this weekend was WrestleMania 38. Not everything lived up to what I wanted it to be. There were things I was a little disappointed in. But in a weird way, this is like a again, this may sound bad, but I take it as a good thing because it made me feel good. It's a whole lot of nostalgia for me this weekend. I told Morgan that I last week that I distinctly remember ordering the original WrestleMania on cable. I begged my parents to order it, and at the time that was a ton of money. I mean, it still is a ton of money.
Oh yeah.
But if you're not paying for Peacock $10 a month, if you're literally just ordering it as a pay-per-view, it's $60-$70.
Yeah.
And in today's dollars, that's probably pretty accurate. I want to say it was 25 or 30 when I was a kid, but you're talking 38 years ago.
Yeah.
No, I didn't ever just ask my parents for $30, but they indulged me for whatever reason, and I got to watch it. And then for the first 9 or so, I ordered them and watched them. I had a little bit of a time period, and then right as the Attitude Era, they call it, started up, The Rock, Stone Cold, Triple H, Undertaker got his second swing of things. All these people popping up. I kind of got back into it, mostly due to John, who I've had on here. Him and I, when we went to college together, he got me back into it around 96. And then for another 10 years, I was all into it. And then I haven't really been watching Peacock. Now it's $10 a month. There's other stuff. Now I get my wrestling again. I don't really know a lot of the new people. I don't watch the weekly shows. I don't even have cable anymore, so I literally can't. So I watch the pay-per-views once a month, and I kind of get my little fix. Someone I know goes on. There is one person I'm aware of, which I've showed you before. Her name's Asuka. She hasn't been around in a while. She got hurt, but she cracks me up, and she's a fantastic wrestler. So I'll watch her now. But other than that, WrestleMania 38 came around. It's been 38 years, and even the guys that we remember, your Hulks, your Macho Mans, your Paul Orndorff, your all these guys, your old school Andre, they're all either gone or Hulk just can't anymore. He's had like 27 surgeries and he ruined his reputation. So, they're not going to trot him out a lot. But that era's gone. And so I have this really deep nostalgia for when John and I were into it, which is, and I kind of got you to watch, which is your Attitude Era stuff.
Yeah.
And even that is now, listen to this, you're going to get sick.
I already am.
26 years old. 25, 26 years old. I have shoes older than that. Like, it's crazy that it's that old already. And so some of the things I was excited about was Undertaker going into the Hall of Fame. He's been around 30 years just being The Undertaker. He's been wrestling for 40 or something. But Undertaker's 30. Stone Cold, one of my all-time favorites. He hasn't wrestled in 19 years. He's going to come back, and he was supposed to just show up to do this little talk show bit with this Kevin Owens guy from Canada who's, making fun of Texas and, Stone Cold from Texas. So at least I get to see him and hear the glass break. Okay, fun. And then, Triple H is going to be walking around, this, that, and the other. And, he trot out a lot of these older people. And I was going to get my little nostalgia fix. Well, it turned into not only a very enjoyable show, it was actually really well done, but it turned into kind of a really big, and again, this is positive because it's nostalgia, but it turned into kind of this really big goodbye. Vince McMahon is, I think, 80-something years old. 80, I don't even know. I mean, he's older. He's, he's doing okay, but he's no spring chicken. Stone Cold's in his I think, late 50s, early 60s. He hasn't wrestled 19 years. Triple H, just 2 weeks ago, had to come out and say that he's officially retiring from performing in the ring. And this guy's 280 all muscle. I mean, the dude's enormous. Turns out he battled a couple massive, it was either heart attacks or seizure type things right after a bunch of pneumonia, right as all this COVID stuff was happening, and it messed up his body. And he officially came out to ESPN and said, look, I can't, for the safety. I got kids. I can't do this. It's not like you have an injury, you bust up your arm and you go, well, my rotator cuff's kind of bad. If I have surgery, I might be able to do it in 5 years, or, that kind of thing. Or, you trot some guy out who hasn't wrestled for 10 years and he's like, I'm feeling better now. This guy's got massive heart problems now. He will, if he goes in the ring, his heart could just explode. He comes out, introduces night 2. Well, first is Friday is Undertaker. So you get the Steiner brothers come out. One of the Steiner brothers has hated the McMahons forever. Has said horrible, horrible things in real life about these people, but they always come around. Vince McMahon knows how to make money. I don't care what you say about me. Are you going to sell tickets? Like, he doesn't care. And so somehow he made amends with Scott Steiner, this guy who has said, I can't even repeat the things he said about Stephanie and other people. Him and his brother were the Steiner brothers, the tag team for a lot of years. I don't know if you remember them. They used to come out in the wrestling gear. And the Rick Steiner would bark. They're Michigan guys.
Yeah.
Well, you can see now they're never going to wrestle again, kind of thing. And they're still built like brick shit houses. I mean, they're massive, but the one guy's having problems walking up the stairs. He's lucky he got a mic now because of the horrible things he said. They're never going to trot this guy out probably again. They give him his ring. They honor him. That's it. He's probably gone forever. You can see him on YouTube. But, like, being in a ring, having 77,000 people, by the way, were in the stadium all 3 nights, screaming Steiner brothers. And all but doing the dog bark. And Rick Steiner looking, barking at everybody.
Yeah, very nice.
I love that. Like, there's so much adoration in there for these guys who, were around for 25 years making us all happy and doing these great things. You could see the appreciation. They just loved hearing it again. And, they got to say kind of a goodbye. There was a couple other people. And then, of course, Undertaker. 30-something years as The Undertaker, a gimmick that never should have worked. All the stupid gimmicks that never worked. Doink the Clown. Morgan laughed at me about that. Doink the Clown and, IRS. And he was the tax guy. He'd come out with the briefcase.
Yes.
Like, these are all Vince McMahon's stupid creations. But the one that worked is The Undertaker. And he will be forever remembered as The Undertaker. The guy will never be able... He will go into his grave, no pun intended, as The Undertaker. He even has talked about in interviews now how, like, he's been wrestling his whole life and he doesn't really know who he really is because he's always had to be the dead man when he's out in public. He doesn't want to be all jolly and silly because that's not what you want out of him. So for 30 years, he's kind of had to be this stoic dude, and now he's got all this free time on his hands. He gets to really be Mark. And it's weird. So his speech was a little long, but, there were some fun bits. And, of course, by the way, like a 13-minute standing ovation. 77,000 people for 13 minutes clapped and screamed, thank you, Taker, love you, Taker, all these, rest in peace, all of his things. Like 13 minutes non-stop, full volume. And it wasn't being piped in because you could see him behind him doing it. Like, everybody loves this dude, and he finally got his 30 years. Someone appreciated what they had done, and it was great to see, and you could just see him loving it. So that's Hall of Fame night. Saturday night rolls around. There's really good matches. Some of the female matches really good, and some of the other ones were not so great. But they get to the end of the night, and Kevin Owens does his little talk show. Remember Piper's Pit? Now they do a lot of them in the ring. And so, he's sitting on his chair, and I called you out, Steve Austin, and sit down, the whole thing.
Right.
Well, you hear the glass break. Boom! And he comes walking out. 77,000 people just go batshit crazy, screaming their head off. And you could see in his face how much he loved it. after 90. I mean, he's come out to end WrestleManias and stuff, but this was for him. And he knew what was going to happen, and we all kind of assumed what was going to happen, but he knew what was going to happen. And you could see how happy he was. He was eating it up every second of it. And because he's one of my favorite dudes, I loving every bit of it. So he goes out there in the usual fake talk show, Piper's Pit stuff.
Yeah.
And, I told you Texas is stupid, all that. And then Kevin Owens says straight up, I did trick you. It wasn't here just to talk to you and scream at you and tell you you're dumb. I want a match. And not only do I want a match, I want a no-holds-barred match right now. Well, the thing is Stone Cold's got neck injuries. They told him, you should never really wrestle again because you never know. You could be paralyzed kind of thing. I don't know how many doctors they must have sent him to get approval to A, perform, but B, that he was satisfied enough to know I'm not going to die or get paralyzed. And he's obviously not 100%. He's in his late 50s, but he looked almost no different. He looked like Stone Cold. Like, he hasn't really aged that much because he still works out and keeps himself in shape. But, like, he got a couple chair shots. Not chair shots, but like he had these standees up. The guy hit him with the standees. They're wrestling out in the crowd. He took did he take a soup? I think he took a suplex onto the cement. He was getting bounced off the ring posts, into the, he took some bumps. It was what they call a squash match. Like, Stone Cold just beat the hell out of Kevin Owens the whole time, but like, he took some shots, and they made it really fun, and you got to see him do it again. And, of course, at the end, he stuns the hell out of him, drinks a whole ton of beer, and ends the night throwing beers at everybody, and the crowd is going crazy. He gets to end a night of WrestleMania, and you're like, wow, he's never going to do this again. He's going to be in his 60s soon. That's pretty much it. He's lucky he got approved now, so it's kind of his goodbye in a way. He'll be on TV and stuff, but, like, that's it now. I'm probably never going to see him wrestle in a ring again, and no one else will. Kids will never get it, what we got to watch. Then, Sunday rolls around. There's some really good matches. One of them in particular, which I sent you a still from, was Johnny Knoxville. They always have a silly match at WrestleMania, and sure enough, it was Johnny Knoxville, and he was keeping up. He was doing a pretty good job. Wrestling, but of course, the jackassery comes out. So like they have a foot on a swivel, and so he gets the guy over by that, he steps on it, and the foot hits the guy in the nuts, and he's hitting him with fire extinguishers and stuff. It's ridiculous. It's jackass stuff. But I was hoping, I'm like, this again was like a no holds barred, because that way they could do the jackass stuff, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, Tremaine's in the audience, by the way.
Okay.
Tremaine's there. So they're like the Jackass crew, and they're screaming and laughing and everything. Well, Johnny comes out. They have their match. And I'm like, they got to end this with, like, the whole Jackass crew coming out and beating this guy up, right? Like, I want Pontius out there. I want Steve-O. I want Wee Man. I want, what's his name? The heavyset guys. Danger Aaron. All of them. And I figured a bunch of them are going to come out. And so, and it's going long, and Knoxville's doing pretty good. Well, sure enough, here comes Pontius, party boy, rips his pants off. He's rubbing on the guy. The guy's trying to throw him. He's throwing him around. And then, Johnny Knoxville does some more stuff. Wee Man pops out, and I sent you a still.
Yeah.
Not that I think he couldn't do it, but Sami Zayn, one of the wrestler that he was fighting, he's probably 230, 240, but muscle. Probably about 6'1", 6'2". Wee Man lifted him up, full blown, lifted him up, and body slammed him. Wee Man. Awesome. Then someone else came out. I can't remember who that was. Then they're doing some more stuff, jackass stuff. Literally, the way the match ends, they slide a giant pre-made mouse trap, like a giant one, slide into the ring while Sami Zayn's it, and I'm gonna get you, and Johnny body slams him on it, pulls the trigger thing on it, and the big giant mousetrap slaps Sami Zayn and pins him with the giant stupid mousetrap, and they win. That was fun. But to end the night again, by the way, night 2 starts with Triple H coming out and to his music, the water, 77,000 people screaming, everyone's loving it. Comes out and he says, I wanted to do this one last time to tell everybody how much I love, appreciate you or thank you or love you, whatever he said. It was really heartfelt. Everyone's screaming like a lunatic. And welcome to WrestleMania. Everyone goes nuts. What they don't show is that he brought his boots out with him. And he left his boots in the ring and then walked out. So that was Triple H's goodbye. And then so all these matches are happening. They're all really good, actually. The women's tag team champion match was pretty good. So anyway, it gets to the end. The jackass thing happened. And again, that's kind of their end. Knoxville's not going to be able to take too many punches after that, So there's that. Well, it gets to the last thing of the night, and it's this new guy that Vince is, he's his protege. And Pat McAfee, the old Indianapolis Colts kicker that used to tackle people. Yeah. He's kind of a tough guy. He's an announcer now for WWE. He's been begging Vince he wants to get in the ring. He's been a fan like we have since he was a kid, and he's only like 30 years old. So Vince gives him a match against his protege. So the match went really well. Pat McAfee can wrestle his ass off, by the way. Don't know where the hell that came from. But he did really good. Anyway, he wins, and the little story, this and that. Well, Vince comes out, and he wants a fight. He rips his shirt off, and he's going to fight. 80-year-old man comes out. He's looking pretty old. But it was funny to see the shirt rip and the Vince being Vince. And, it's like, all right, this is probably going to be the last time we see this too, so let's just enjoy it. And he picks a fight and this and that. Well, they beat up Pat McAfee, and that's it. Well, sure enough, glass breaks. Here comes Austin. He comes running down again. 2 nights in a row. As I get a 2 nights on the glass break, he comes hauling down into the ring and just proceeds to beat the hell out of everybody in the ring. Everyone gets a stunner. And, of course, the whole thing that started it was their fight in 97 on TV. And he gives basically Vince the second or third stunner that had ever happened on live television that he had ever given. And that's what started the Attitude Era, basically, they say. That was kind of what changed everything. And sure enough, he gives him a beer. Oh, I'm not going to do anything. And then, he's going to give him the stunner. The problem is Vince takes the kick, but he's old, and he can't stand up. He gets knocked back into the turnbuckle on accident, so Stone Cold has to literally lift him up and do one of the worst stunners I've ever seen in my life. But you get to see him stun Vince. And it's probably the last time that's ever going to happen. The guy's 80 years old. You're going to break his neck. So you get one more shot. And then, of course, he calls Pat McAfee up. Or no, I think it's Pat McAfee up, stuns him. Then the other guy, the announcer, gets another stunner. And then it's beer being thrown everywhere and everyone having a good time. Yeah. And it's just great. As much as I knew it was a goodbye and it was kind of a bummer, getting to watch all this stuff one last time, it was a huge hit of nostalgia. Yeah. It made me feel good.
Okay. Excuse me. Oh, shit. Okay, so my second thing. Apologize, everyone. I've been shuffling a lot of television lately, even when I'm not coughing up a lung. And so usually been watching stuff at home and try to watch an episode or two of something every night. Just things I haven't seen or need to catch up on and stuff like that. And so we had started one show that we got about halfway through, and it was kind of like, I'm not feeling this. I don't. It's like a little thing, like dinner and the TV show that we're watching that night. It's turned into a thing during the hellscape. That was a thing that we were doing, and so I was watching this one show and I was like, I'm not really feeling this, and I know it's only 6 episodes, but I want to move on to something else. Moved on to something else, tried it, and I'm like liking it, but not like loving it, kind of thing. And I just finished this other one show tonight. And I'll tell you what it is later, which I like. I don't think it's great, but I like it. I think it's funny and sweet. But in the middle of all of it, I was told about this one show that just premiered on Apple TV this past week, I guess. And one of the lovely things about the shows on Apple and the movies on Apple is that I have access to them.
All right, I'm going to put a little P next to this for promotion. I have to hit a button when I upload.
There you go. Okay, because I'm talking specifically about Apple, or
because you are getting something for free or ahead of somebody, you're getting some sort of compensation in order to review or do something. So I have to click a little button.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's amazing that we have to do that, but it doesn't work for the White House.
They're the White House.
Not the other White House, not this one.
Oh.
But yeah, no. Okay, so I'm a film critic, YouTube, so I get shit for free. So. Cool your jets.
I only have to hit it if we actually talk about something that you get compensation for.
Well, no, I don't want to talk about it anymore.
It's just a button hit. I don't care.
Okay. But I had access to the entire show.
Yeah.
And I was told some good things about it and put it on, and we absorbed it in 2 nights. 6 episodes. And I think the everyone public only has access, I think, to the first 2 right now. So it's going to play through April, I think, when it finishes up. And it's a show I think you're really going to dig.
Okay.
And it's called Slow Horses.
Slow Horses.
Yes.
Okay.
And the premise of the show is based on a book. Excuse me. It's a spy thriller, but it's a spy thriller. The Slow Horses is based on, well, let me rephrase that. The main focus of the show is a collection of spies who work for MI5 but they are the ones that are basically in the penalty box. Okay. They have been reprimanded. They have not done their jobs well. And they're basically put into this little crappy office, not in the big show with all the fancy monitors and everything. They just it's almost like it's like worse than The Office. It's like Joe versus the volcano type of situation. Little crappy office, and it's presided over by Gary Oldman.
Okay,
and he is a guy that we don't know exactly why he's in of all things, he's in charge of these group of misfits, so to speak. They're not misfits. They know what they're doing, but they're just on the they're on the short list with the higher ups. So they got to be over here for all these different reasons. And all Oldman does is just he plays like he doesn't want to be there. He's just there to babysit these idiots and whatnot. He insults them all the time. He wakes himself up by farting. I've never seen a character referencing blowing ass as much as Gary Oldman does during this show, and in like wonderfully creative ways too. Like you're actually going to pick up on some language that he uses, and it'll probably make your way into that fun part of our lives.
Nothing gets me laughing like a good fart.
Yeah. That's how he's introduced in the show. He literally is just sitting on the couch and he wakes himself up by farting. Okay. So that's Gary Oldman. But what happens is a kidnapping takes place of a son of like a Pakistani oil magnate or something like that. An innocent kid picked up by some more or less white supremacist radicals in Britain. And it's bleeds over into this other group of people who all want to be doing something, but they're not, they're basically assigned to look through garbage and stuff and look for clues, and it's not really manifesting anything. And it's the way it kind of trickles down to where they start to get involved in what's going on with this kidnapping is really fun and interesting. And it's a show that just builds and builds, and it's a lot of it is done for. There's a lot of comedy in it. I mean, it's but it has a really great balance of comedy, but also taking the plot line deadly seriously. So it's building, and it does one of my kind of favorite things in movies and television, where you have these low rent people in low rent in quotation marks, where they get a chance now to sort of prove themselves, and not just prove themselves, but are kind of get their second wind. They get inspired to make a difference, inspired, not that they don't want to, but now here's their chance and we're going to leap at it. And maybe we have something to offer that the higher ups don't have. And there's a lot of intrigue going on. Kristen Scott Thomas plays the second in command at MI5, and the stuff that goes on between her and Oldman. Oldman is tremendous in the show, like so good and so much fun. And the fact that he played one of the most famous spies in literature ever in George Smiley from Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which actually gets a reference, a very clever reference in the show without being overly clever. And to see him as this guy that is just beaten down and smoking and drinking and farting all over the place, and just and see him spring into becoming like the smartest guy in the room. Like, this guy has so much to offer, and he's just been kind of tired and beaten down, but now you can see that it's all well and back up in him,
like burnt out. Now he's found his, like you said, second
yes, and he's still and he's so smart. I mean, everyone looks down on him because all he does is insult them, but then you kind of realize, like, yeah, he's kind of got reason to, because he's much smarter than any of these other people, and they're not dumb either. And I'm going to sell this show to you if I haven't really sold it already. But I'll say one word, and you'll catch it in the next part that I'm about to say. Is that I texted this to someone, this person who actually recommended me the show, and I said to him, this is really coming on. This is about midway through the show. I said, this really feels like a bit of a little bit more serious Sneakers. Okay. The characterizations are not quite as precise. The cast is not quite as recognizable as that movie that we love. But again, as goofy as those characters were, they are all good at their job, which made them incredibly interesting. And that's kind of what you see throughout this. And you see them working together. And there's very clever suspense in the show. It's funny. There's some genuine shocks. There's some real violence. And after six episodes, I was so thoroughly satisfied by the end of it. And what was awesome at the end of it is that at the end of the 6 episodes, there's a trailer for the second season.
Already?
They've already filmed the second season, and it's coming out later this year.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and I cannot. This is the show that I'm recommending the most to people right now. I just saw it over the weekend. Like I said, only 2 episodes are available. There'll be another episode released every week. It is so worth your time. It's fun. It's funny. Oldman giving a performance that you just want to keep seeing him play this character for a while. And the rest of the cast is really good too. Yeah, I love this show.
Well, Slow Horses. That down along with young adults. So Slow Horses. That's on.
That's a good.
Apple. Sorry, Apple.
Yeah.
Where was young adult? Is it on a particular channel, or is it just anywhere?
I'll look that up.
Oh, you don't have to look it up. I mean, you don't know if it's exclusive though.
Oh, I don't know. No, I have no idea if it's any. It was a Paramount movie, so maybe it's on Paramount Plus.
Oh, there you go.
That'd be my first guess.
Knowing streaming services is probably easy. So yeah, on a side note, because you're talking about that right now, I went to grab a clip from Fletch. I must have 6 different streaming services because I cut the cable.
Yeah.
There's only 2 places that you can even stream it, and it's like $5. You would think with all the subscription services I pay for, I'd get to watch Fletch for free. Nope. Got to pay an additional $5. It's almost a whole month of the service.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just found that interesting.
That's annoying.
Again, as usual.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
But, yeah. Wow. Okay. Slow Horses.
Yeah, that's some good watching. Young Adult is a very uncomfortable, dark comedy to watch, and doesn't appear to be available anywhere for not a price right now.
Right.
So unfortunately, but I mean, I have it. I can loan it to you. Yeah, but no, young Adult is great, and Slow Horses, yeah, love it.
All right. Sorry, my finger hurt me. Mine isn't nearly as serious, but it's something I'm assuming everybody who's listening, or you especially, enjoy. And I found out, so you know how everything was used to be like, oh, it's a Hallmark holiday, and now like just everything has a holiday, right? It's Pet Your Cat Day, or what? It's some goofy.
Today was National Deep Dish Pizza Day. Apparently. Today, for I think it's the 7th time this year is national. Yeah, but I got a thing from one of the pizza places I'm subscribed to.
There you go.
Yeah.
So turns out April 2nd. And it reminded me of it. Turns out April 2nd is National Peanut Butter and Jelly Day.
Is this congressionally mandated, by the way? Because I think that's all they do in Congress nowadays.
Sure. Who knows? Or it's some internet created. Hey, remind everybody. It's or big peanut butter is behind this or something. The Illuminati wants you to buy peanut butter. It's all Jimmy Carter's fault. But it made me think about peanut butter and jelly and how much I love peanut butter and jelly.
Oh.
And that everybody, I can't think of a person. I mean, unless you're allergic to peanuts, and obviously, then I feel for you. But you can use sun butter, which is sunflower seeds. There's other butters that are similar to peanut butter that are not peanut butter based. So you can make as close as you can possibly get facsimile to a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But who have you never heard of that got a peanut butter and jelly sandwich as a kid? And can you name one person that you know of that goes, oh, I hate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches? Come on. I thought
hate's a strong word. Hate's a strong word.
You don't. If I said, hey, man, I'm going to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you'd go, I do not want one.
No, I would probably have it. But
you don't have an affinity for them.
I don't have an affinity for it, which is weird because I love peanuts. Okay. But I've never quite gotten into peanut butter. Okay. I've had peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I think every 5 years I try one and see if something registers with me. The last time I had one, I didn't feel great after it. I don't know why.
Or is it because you worked yourself up into not feeling well?
No. It's not like I'm like, I hope this doesn't make me puke. No, it wasn't. I was like legitimately like, I made a peanut butter jelly sandwich. I'm like, it's time I try this again. And I think I'm due for that. I've thought about it a few times over the last 6 months, and I just haven't pulled the trigger on it. Well, but
now's your time. Although you're a couple days late. It was National Peanut Butter and Jelly Day.
If I wasn't so full right now, I'd go because I got peanut butter, I got jelly, I got bread. Yeah. I would do it, and maybe bring up a pomegranate like last week and
That's right.
Try that.
The only thing I'll say is so when you do make them, even though you don't have an affinity for them.
I don't.
Even if when you do make it, I'm curious, how do you make it? What do you use? Use bread, use peanut butter. Yeah. What kind of peanut butter?
Usually Skippy.
Creamy, chunky, extra chunky.
Creamy.
Okay, see, I would think would be the standard. Some people swear on chunky peanut butter. I don't get that for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but okay. So creamy, that's where that's a proper peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Yeah.
Then jelly, what kind of jelly?
Well, generally when I've had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, it's usually grape jelly. I'm pretty sure I've never made one with my favorite jellies personally is raspberry. That's my jelly of choice. Ooh, from little boy up to this guy. Okay. Raspberry is my jam, literally. Thank you. I love grape jelly too. But I think I've only ever had PB&J with grape jelly. Pretty standard. Yeah.
I'm not out to yuck anybody's yum. But the deal is, when you think of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, Mrs. Fun and I talk about this because she'll make it with strawberry. If you have strawberry in the house, she makes strawberry.
Okay.
I don't get it. If I'm gonna eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, it doesn't even need to be expensive. Sweet, fake. Well, it's not fake, but Concord grape, like purple
Concord grape
jelly.
Yeah.
Creamy peanut butter, not chunky. Yeah. I don't get it.
Yeah.
And bread. Plain bread.
White bread.
Start putting stuff on wheat bread and whole grain bread. I don't care. It seems ridiculous to me. Plain white sandwich bread.
Yeah.
Plain,
just like us.
Creamy peanut butter. But that's not plain. It's still tasty. Peanut butter's tasty.
Yeah.
And then good old bright purple Concord grape jelly. Don't care what company. Doesn't have to be whatever, Welch's or whatever, the 15 different companies. That's it. The simpler the better. It's like you start getting into apricot preserves and fancy peanut butters. I don't need to spend $20 on a jar of peanut butter. But again, if you have an allergy, I get it. But there's sun butters, other things. But I mean, the classic.
Yeah.
They're so good, and they can be good for you in moderation. But I don't just make one. I got to make like 2 full peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Do you make two right away, or do you make one, eat one, and then make another one?
Most of the time, if I know I'm going to make myself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I usually will make 2.
Okay.
It's not good for me, but if I'm going to make it, eat 2. Yeah. And every once in a while, I will literally have a craving. And inevitably, it's, my grape jelly's out of date or something, so I got to run to the store, go get grape jelly, come back, because, peanut butter lasts forever. But, you go get peanut butter, you go get the jelly, you got to make it.
Well, as Jack Nicholson says in the movie Wolf, peanut butter and jelly is like mother's milk to me.
See?
Yeah.
It's classic.
Yeah. And I'm sure it tasted even better considering he was eating it with Michelle Pfeiffer. So it had to taste fantastic.
I suppose anything, dinner, whatever, hanging out with Michelle Pfeiffer is probably
how often do you do PB&Js?
Lately, not often.
Okay.
But there was a while there where I almost subsisted on them.
Okay.
Like a meal a day, kind of almost,
Yeah.
And the unfortunate thing is they don't necessarily sit well unless you get a nice, good, thick bread or even the plain sandwich bread. If you don't want it too fresh because it's too moist.
Yeah.
You put a peanut butter is fine, but you put that jelly on there and then you put it in a sandwich bag and you bring it to school for lunch. It's not so good all the time. But again, nice, good, cold piece of bread that stays together. Good. I don't even care. It doesn't even need to be 50-50. Like you said, you don't like peanut butter? Just put a little bit of peanut butter. Then put a lot of jelly.
I do not like even the jelly. Very thin layers, just enough to know that they're there and then I can taste it.
I'm a sugar guy.
Yeah.
So the peanut butter's good because it's like a flat salty.
Right.
I mean, salty, sweet. That's the idea, right? So the peanut butter's got that just enough salt. The white bread's so plain. It's just there to hold the thing together.
Yeah.
And then the sweet is that bright purple Concord grape jelly.
Right.
So it's probably 2 to 1. 2 jelly, 1. I'll even bring myself a spoon on the plate because inevitably you're biting into it. The jelly comes out.
Yeah.
That way when you're done, you either smash the sandwich in the jelly and eat it, or scoop it up with a spoon, eat it, and take another bite.
That's why you get a jelly the middle, because then when you're eating, it'll process its way out.
Well, yeah, the middle. Oh, well, wait. Do you put peanut butter on both slices of bread and then put jelly in the middle of that?
No, I do not.
I was gonna say, okay, yeah.
No.
One piece has peanut butter.
Jelly.
One piece has jelly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll even go for an Uncrustable. If all else fails and I don't have peanut butter jelly in the house, or we're at the store and I'm like, you know what, I don't want to go buy a whole other thing of jelly. I'll buy a box of Uncrustables, and it's like a dessert.
Yeah.
Because it's sweet. It's just sweet enough that sugary jelly.
Yeah.
Too good. Too good.
Okay,
but April 2nd for everybody next year if you want to put it on your calendar.
Maybe that's when I'll do my next
peanut butter and
PB&J
jelly
sandwich. Yeah, I missed that. No, because normally I get emails, it's National Hug Your Pet Day. It's National, Mixer Day. I mean, it's like, shut up,
This is a good one though. You got to eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Right. I mean, at one point, do they just fill up all the days with something and just like, shit, we got nothing left for you?
They got to double up now. I've heard some days come up and they're like, it's this and this today.
It's basically like the ribbons that people wear at award shows. They're gonna run out of colors eventually.
Their whole lapel goes down to their waist.
Yeah. Just thinking about Jackie. That's
right.
Okay, so for my third one, I was looking around for something specific, and there's a movie that just reviewed on the podcast, my Movie Madness podcast, this past week.
Go subscribe, Apple, iTunes, and what else? Spotify and
yes, Movie Madness and The Friendship Dilemma. You had Morgan Geyer on last week. Did a great job selling that and making fun of it.
Well deservedly so.
Sure. But there's a movie that premiered on Netflix this past week. I'm going to use that as a springboard to bring up one of these other things and use that as a triple lendy to these other things that I'm basically doing. Richard Linklater had a new movie on Netflix this week called Apollo 10.5, A Space Age Childhood. And it's the third film that he's done where he's used the rotoscoping animation technique. Yep. Okay, where he films stuff and then animates the film
over it and then uses that. So like the old Disney movies did it a lot.
Right. Yeah.
That's basically how they look so real, the movement.
Right. And in the film, which is more or less a reminiscence of him and his family who grew up in Houston, not far away from one of the many Air Force bases where some of the astronauts were stationed at. And his dad was actually a pencil pusher for NASA. So that he was always, hearing about that kind of stuff. And in the film, the way that it plays out is this remembrance in that the film opens with him his name's not Richard in the story, but he's like the youngest of like 7 kids in the family. And so as the story goes, one day at school, he gets approached by 2 government officials who tell him that the lunar module that they made for Apollo 11 for the moon landing mission is too small. And so rather than admit defeat in it, they want to test it out. So, and the only people who can fit inside the smaller module is a child. So they want to use him as 11, 12-year-old child, train him for a pre-Apollo 11 mission. Okay. That's how the story begins. And then he goes into like his entire family, talks about his relationship with his parents. It is like describing the podcast. It is nostalgia with a capital every single letter. Okay. About this period in history in the late 60s, going to movies, talking about television shows, board games, like all these things that the family would do, prank calls, amusement parks, all these things that they were doing growing up in Houston, while this whole specter of this new technology, this whole new entry into the space race was about to occur. And then it becomes this sort of really interesting kind of memory piece about how when you look back upon our childhoods, for example, and we think about things we might have wished we could have done or fantasized about doing that we never could do, and those memories kind of get squished together a little bit, and whether we realize we're doing it or not, the way memory works is sometimes we might be exaggerating something or might be slightly misremembering something. And that's how this whole idea of the small module and him being put literally into the space race becomes this sort of really unique part of the story, and how that's manifest with him watching the actual Apollo 11 launch and moon landing and stuff. But I talked to, that's not the reason the reason I brought that up is again as a springboard, is because this month on Criterion, they're releasing, and again, you might want to hit the P button for this one because I got this.
It's just one button.
Okay. It's really, so you just hit P and that's it?
It says if there's been any, and you have to hit this button if there's been any promotion, reimbursement,
Okay.
something, paid product placement, something. Any sort of reimbursement, and then you just hit it, and there's just a little window that pops up in the corner that says there's been paid promotion. That's all.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, coming out on Criterion this month, they're releasing a 4K version of this film called For All Mankind. And this movie is a documentary that came out in 1989, and it's more or less, it's sort of a non-linear documentary. It's not full of talking heads and stuff. It's literally like pieced together footage from many of the NASA missions, okay, from the moon landing and from some of the other ones that we've learned about. And it's just watching this footage and watching footage of the guys at NASA and talking to these people. Some of the stuff from Apollo 13, footage of that is featured in this documentary, and it's just such a wonderful collage of this time in history. And you know what a space hawk I am, and it just like the Linkletter thing just sort of like, and I think I got this like on the same day.
Oh, wow.
That I saw that, and I'm just like, oh man, this is wonderful. Just talked about this a couple years ago on one of our 1989 podcasts that we do at the Directors Club. And it's if you have any fascination at all about the space race and about that period in history, this is just it's not political, it's not it's not has any of those things that might pull you apart from it. It's just the discovery, the imagination, the look at what we did. Look at these moments in time that are going to be around for everyone.
Look at all this fake footage that was filmed in the basement of Hollywood studio.
All right, Kubrick. If Buzz Aldrin was here, he'd punch you in the mouth.
That's right.
Right now, which is I think is talked about, and there's another, I could have pulled that one out too. There's a documentary called In the Shadow of the Moon, came out a few years ago, which is about, they talk about a lot of the surviving astronauts and their missions and whatnot, and there's some great footage in that one as well. But I just wanted to use this again, which is coming out this month.
That cover's really good. Can you put that cover up again? That cover's really neat. It's just obviously there you go. It's just it's a far shot. It says For All Mankind in big letters on the top, but the beauty of it is it's the lunar surface, and I don't know, 3/4 of the way into the horizon is the back of one of the astronauts kind of walking away in the moon dust on the lunar surface. Right. What a great shot, man. I always say this to this day, like, there are certain things people experience, and there's one-offs, right? You can be one of 1 million people, or you win the lottery, you get struck by lightning, or there's, one of 1,000 did this, or, even if you win, I don't care. You win something, you do something. Even people like in the NFL, you'd say it's like 1 out of every 2,000 people that tries out, like, gets it, like that kind of thing. Yeah. Like you can keep cranking that down to, like, 1 out of 50 of this, right?
Right.
I can't. Anybody who got to walk on the moon, it's the unbeatable story. There's 13 missions. One of them never fully went. One of them blew up. Right, the initial one with the where they all died.
That's awesome. Yeah.
13 never made it, and the last one didn't land. Right, they only did a partial. They orbited, I think.
Yes.
And there's like, out of the 13 or 14 missions, only like 10 of them I think actually landed and walked around. Where they show the guys with the golf clubs or they're driving a little lunar car around.
It's not even that many.
Yeah.
It's really
okay.
I mean, 10 astronauts maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
But not,
To be fair, yeah. So even if it's 8 and 2 apiece got to walk. Because one of them has to stay up in orbit. They can't. Right. That poor bastard. He got all the way there, and all he gets to do is go around. The other 2 get to land and drive around and play golf. Like, how do you process that? You have done something shy of a godlike figure, or whatever you want to believe, or whoever you worship, or don't worship, or whatever. You're on another rock rotating around the sun, and you're one of only 10 people, not just now, in ever people. Sorry, just got back from teaching. Sergio said, like, you are one of only like 10 people ever, and probably will ever, unless we start colonizing things in 100 years from now. Like, that's it. It's an unbeatable story, and to have these things where they show like footage of them figuring out the math, figuring out propulsion and weight and electricity distribution. Remember, like in 13, where they're having to redo the circuit so only certain things turn on in certain orders. Like, like the math, and then please forgive me. What's the movie with the three people of color? The three ladies. Yeah, Hidden Figures. Like, there are people on the planet. One of them, by the way, I found out is not those three ladies, but it was also a white female also, but a female who, you know, again, is the mother of Jack Black. Jack Black's mother had to figure out some equation. She was going into labor, so she took her materials with her. Now, I'm hoping this story is correct. I haven't been able to confirm it, but it seems to be going around. So maybe do this for me, check it. But I've recently seen it 3 times. Supposedly, while she was going to give birth to Jack Black, she was doing an equation to help them figure something out. And see if he confirmed that story or not. So that way I'm not telling tales out of school here. But
I'm wondering if you're just seeing that, I'm wondering if that's no, there's a story I'm looking at, it literally says fact check
Mom did.
On it. Yes, the headline, fact check. Yes, Jack Black's mother worked on system that helped save Apollo 13 astronauts.
There you go. So she was part of that. Of course, she's not in the movie as far as I remember. But she was part of the ones that figured out all that stuff. Like, all these people, all these calculations, and then that wonderful footage they show. To this day, like, I'm joking about the guy playing golf, but it intrigues me so much. Like, you could only bring so many personal items with you. There's only be like 2. Right. They could only weigh a certain amount because everything had to be calculated ahead of time. You couldn't even sneak anything on. Yeah. And one of them brought a golf club and a golf ball, and he was able to do a chip shot or a whatever on the moon.
Yeah.
Like, the footage is so interesting. So I always love, like you said, I'm not as big as you are into that kind of stuff, but I love watching that footage of them walking around on the moon, and when the camera will swing and you see the Earth behind it with the silhouette on it, and you're like, Jesus, we're so small. Like, all these problems, all these things, like, you can't sit on that other planet and look back and not realize, like, you know, it's humbling.
Yeah.
That's what this stuff does to me when I see it. It humbles me.
Yeah, and you think about, we talk about the poor bastards, doing the orbits and whatnot, but you think about like that moment in Apollo 13 where they're actually literally slingshotting themselves around the moon, and they get to look out at the moon, and I'm glad that Howard put in that one scene, that little. Normally, it's not something I would like him to put in, but he puts in that little fantasy moment of Hanks as Jim Lovell, imagining he's on the moon and doing the walk and touching, and it's you watch it, just like you hurt, you're so close. You can almost touch it. It's right there. You've traveled from the Earth to here, and you can't do it because something's gone wrong with your craft.
At that point at 13, didn't they know there was only going to be a couple more? A, B, those things are planned out months and years in advance. Yeah. So even if you did get a chance to go back, because I think one of the astronauts did the orbit on one and then was able to go back a second time and then do the landing. I could be wrong on that, but imagine even if that was the case, okay, I'm on Apollo, say 3. If I plan this out right, I stay in shape, I keep up with the new tech and all that stuff, I might be able to go on 9 or 10 and do something else, because it'll be benefit to have me there. I've already done it once. Yeah. They knew at 13. Odds are they're not going back.
What they didn't know, what NASA kind of knew, and what the people who were running NASA knew, and that it's talked about in the movie, is that
of all mankind.
No, in Apollo 13.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna steer it back here in a second, but in Apollo 13, where they talk about the popularity of the NASA program was dwindling. I mean, there's two missions after landing on the moon, and America's just like, been there.
Yeah.
It's just that you think about our low attention spans and stuff like that, but also because what I'm going to do really quick here, because this I love For All Mankind. And if you see, you can't see it, but like right over here, if the picture would have come out for Ursa, but nothing.
I didn't even catch that. I didn't hear it.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, but if you look
over here,
okay, well, you see the picture of the moon there and whatnot. Yeah. It's cropped, obviously, because of the DVD cover. If you look sort of like right over here, if they didn't cut it out, Ursa.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you.
Nan.
Yes, Nan is over here, I think.
So what is this place called? Houston.
Yeah. What sort of creature are you? Just a man. A man? Love Superman too. But again, in For All Mankind, one of the things you actually see is that moment in Apollo 13 where they have to build the filter for the carbon dioxide that was breaking in. You see them and it looks just like it does in Apollo 13. And you see them like put this thing down there, and like this is what they have to build to prevent themselves from dying of carbon dioxide poisoning.
That's crazy.
Which is amazing. So that's one of the many things you get to see in this amazing documentary that's now going to be available on 4K from Criterion. But again,
just real quick.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the 4K restorations and stuff. Now, I'm just curious because you get all these conspiracy theory people who say already that doesn't exist. Do they say how they did the 4K restoration of the footage? Does it say they used AI to do it, or is it just
that I don't know. I mean, I
just film?
That I didn't watch all the extras on it. Normally, they don't usually do stuff like here's how we did it. Yeah, that I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that really a thing? Is it like...
Oh, they're taking like old 70s video. Like people can just do it. There's even some pretty basic software if you got a computer that can crunch the numbers and stuff.
Yeah.
And it'll have an AI, like an algorithm, go over like a 3-minute video, and by the time you're done, you have it in full 4K.
Huh.
It's a computer, but again, it's where it thinks it knows what should be there. So it adds a pixel where it needs it, and then it finds it out, and it uses some anti-aliasing and things. But you get like 60 frames a second. It'll stabilize the image. The old, like even that footage is like bouncy and stuff. It'll take a key frame, and it'll take all the frames and straighten them every frame so that it becomes stable. And then it'll 4K res it up, and it's just an algorithm, an AI doing it. So you can see some... conspiracy theory people watch it going, they used AI. The AI's added stuff to the footage. So I just was curious if they notated on there how they did it.
But they're not known as conspiracy people anymore. They're known as assholes. Okay, dumb assholes. But so Apollo 10.5, terrific. For All Mankind, terrific. But in the general sense, anytime you start talking about the space program and the things that we have done, I become a little boy again.
Yeah.
I really do. And so how much I love this movie. One of my 10 favorite films of all time, The Right Stuff. Still will never forget going to that screening with my dad. Will never forget it. And this one too, if you haven't seen, you really should, because this just came out a couple years ago, and it's amazing. And it's a documentary. And again, it's not really a talking. I think there might be a little bit of narration here and there from people who worked in NASA at the time, but it's mostly it's all like newly found footage of this mission from the the setup of it, from them getting into the rocket, the launch footage, them in space traveling to the moon and orbiting and touchdown. It is one of the most exciting documentaries I've ever seen. It is so entertaining. If you have any interest in the space program, this is one of the most must-watch documentaries, period. It is it just, oh my God, I just sat there enraptured watching
Apollo 11.
stuff.
I want to say I remember when that came out. I just never like kind of hit it to like watch it. I know I was interested in it, but it must have fallen off my radar.
It played in some IMAX theaters at the time here in Chicago, which I unfortunately never got to see in IMAX.
And now we never will.
Now we never will, right? So is that also? I didn't bring it with me, but First Man, the story of the Apollo 11 with Ryan Gosling as Neil Armstrong, is
Sergio just said produced and co-financed by the late great Alan Ladd Jr. Is that is he talking about? That would be after his time though, wouldn't it? That was only a couple years ago. Is Alan Ladd Jr. still alive?
No, he just passed away just recently.
Oh, it might have been then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or is he talking about Right Stuff?
Oh, Right Stuff. Yeah, no, Right Stuff. He's probably talking about the Right Stuff because that was the Ladd company. That you remember the Blade Runner had the same thing, the tree logo, and at the beginning of the thing. So the Ladd company is Right Stuff.
Probably what Sergio's talking about.
Yeah. But no, First Man with Ryan Gosling, criminally underseen movie about Neil Armstrong. I mean, again, it's the Right Stuff is there, but First Man is kind of like right there. It's and incredibly moving. It's kind of hard not to have tears at the end of it when they recreate it and what Armstrong does on the moon. It's a film as much about letting go and trauma as it is about this amazing thing that we did as a country. So anytime I get to talk about the space program or just watch something about it or someone else's experience through it, I'm an 8-year-old boy again.
And what was it? It was called Apollo 10.5 was the other one?
Apollo 10.5 is on Netflix right now. Apollo 11 is the documentary, the newly found footage, and First Man is the Neil Armstrong story.
Sergio's asking. Yeah, I remember about Alan Ladd Jr. It's just we were trying to, because he named like 6 movies. I wasn't quite sure which one you were talking about, but yeah, he confirmed it's also the Right Stuff is what he was talking about. But yeah, I didn't know which one because he just put up Apollo 11. I know there's a slight delay on the chat, so but yeah. I've seen half of them, and I know I liked them. Half the things you've said so far.
Apollo 13, by the way, I think we are doing in Elk Grove in June.
Oh wow, okay.
So at Elk Grove Cinema, we do the Critics Classic series once a month. We're doing Out of Sight this week, depending on if you're watching this now.
It'll be tomorrow.
Thursday night. Yeah.
Well,
but next month, first Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. Next month, May, we're doing Raiders of the Lost Ark. So,
I mean, come on, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
You get a chance to see that on the big screen, you got to go.
Yeah, if you're anywhere near Elk Grove, swing out. And not only that, the tickets are really cheap too. They're not even full price, right?
I think they're full price now.
Are they full price now?
Yeah.
Well, pandemic.
Got a little pandemic catch up.
I gotcha. Yeah, makes sense. So you should, but either way, you're getting a good movie that you probably will never see again on the screen unless you can find a screening somewhere. And how often does that happen anymore? I mean, shy of you doing it and some other people, or if you live in the city where they have, theaters that are specialized in rescreening movies, you're not going to get it out in the suburbs otherwise.
Yeah, so. It's like Elk Grove or the Music Box. Those like the two places where you can go to see some of these retro things. And we're doing Raiders and most likely Apollo 13 in June.
No, so good.
Yep.
Well, you did have a couple documentaries in there. As it just so happens, my number 3 is also a documentary. I mentioned it once last week because we were in the midst of watching it, and it's a good combination of what I like to call cheesy TV and a good documentary. And I don't mean good documentary like, here's a bunch of numbers and all these. I don't mind a good kind of. I almost call them like trashy documentaries. I like a documentary. If you make it interesting, I'll watch anything. It's the history of basket weaving. There was a scandal 100 years ago. All right, I'll watch a basket weaving documentary. It's like, can you make it interesting for me? I'll watch.
There are orgies.
Well, hey, of course you're going to watch that.
Yeah.
But in this case, Mrs. Fun was like, hey, I watched the first 20 minutes of this. I really think you'd like it. So we were all right. So we sat down and we ripped through the whole thing. I want to say it's 3 episodes, hour long a piece, maybe 4. It was on a weekend. We ripped through it. But anyway, It's called Bad Vegan.
4 episodes.
Fraud. Yeah, see? Fame, fraud, fugitives. And so I'm like, okay. So bad vegan must, like they're just using the word vegan or something, right? It's about this woman named, I think her name is Smarga. I'm not even going to try to pronounce her last name. But she is a woman who seems very driven, and she is a health food advocate, a vegan advocate. And what she does is, instead of it just being like, eat some veggies and don't eat meat, like she knows a guy who helps her finance this restaurant situation. I believe, if I remember correctly, she's kind of working there already, but she figures out a way to, in New York, shy of Chicago, I don't care what they say about LA or even Texas, because even in Texas you only have some minor specialty food. They say Chicago and New York are pretty much the culinary areas of America, because you can get everything here, and New York obviously is another giant melting pot. You get everything in New York, and then you get some of the best restaurants in both. Well, in the heart of New York, so much so, it begins with a quote from Howard Stern, because he's a big vegan, and he's like, I went out to dinner last night, and of course he comments on the woman's looks, but that it does actually kind of segue into what the documentary's about. Is he's like, yeah, I went to this restaurant in New York, and it's all vegan food, and you're like, you can't have a restaurant in New York with no meat or proteins like that other than just veggies. Somehow this woman becomes pop culture. She has these 2 restaurants, a main restaurant and then like a coffee house that also sells vegan food. But it's high end. People are paying hundreds of dollars a plate to eat at her fancy vegan restaurant. She becomes super well known. Stars are going there. They have their own tables. At one point, they start quoting people that, like, that's his table and that's that guy's table. So when they come, they get that table and they know exactly what food to get them. It becomes that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And through a series of events, this woman who becomes lonely and is just kind of looking for some companionship, the only thing she really has is a restaurant and her workers, and she just kind of living her life. She decides, through a friend of a friend, chatting with this guy who purports himself to be more than he is. He's not going to tell you what he does. He's not going to quite tell you. Maybe he's in the military. Maybe he's kind of with the government. I can't really tell you what's going on. And it begins innocent enough. If you're a spy or whatever, you're not going to run around tell the first girl you date, by the way, I'm a spy. But you might say, look, work for the government. There will be times I'm not going to be around. You can always get a hold of me, but you got to understand, if you're going to start dating me, it's 6 months in, like, there may be times I'm not around. So she believes this dude. The rest of the documentary is this man terrorizing her. It starts out with, look, I work for the government. 2, basically, I'm a spy, and if you kind of don't do what I'm asking you to do, I could be hurt. Then it's, if you don't do what I'm telling you to do, we could be hurt. Then it's, if you don't do what we're supposed to do, and it's really all encompassing, I don't have to do much, but you have to do a lot. If you just do what I'm telling you to, your dog and us will become immortal. And you're like, wait, this can't, no, it's a joke, right? She starts taping their phone conversations. And you start to see the sheer sociopath this guy is. It is an incredibly emotionally abusive relationship, and ultimately becomes even a little physically abusive in different ways. But mostly it's him terrorizing her for years, and him tricking her. Like, well, one of the times he's like, well, these things have to go down, and if they're gonna believe you so that we can get into the promised land, not heaven, it's just this, like, he's almost like talking about like almost like a cult, or this place, this nirvana that we can go to and be safe and immortal. You got to go, I think it's to Greece or something, or Rome. And so she's like, okay. She just packs her stuff up. She's not happy about it. She's calling him out. She's like, this is BS. And he's like, no, it's not. I told you. And then you start hearing him yell at her and pressure her. So she goes. all right, fine, I'm in this far. I guess I got to do what this guy's saying. She goes. While she's there, he waltzed into her restaurant where they know him now. It's been a couple years. They're married now, by the way. He proceeds to tell all the workers there, she's no longer in charge, I am. And I'm just going to be taking a lot of the money out of here, and no one needs to ask any questions. And if you don't like it, too bad. And don't question her or me, and we'll just fire you. And all these people who've been loyal to her, they're leaving. They're losing jobs. They're losing money. He's basically bleeding her dry of something like $1.7 million over like a 5-year period. Anytime she finally made money, he scammed her into basically giving it to him for this nebulous nirvana thing he kept promising her. It's almost the end game. Why don't you just listen to me and do what I told you? It is if you want to see like people being indoctrinated into a cult or dealing with a true sociopath. This isn't even con man, because con men are sociopaths. This guy is I don't know, I'm not a doctor. Karen could probably help me diagnose this, but like he's not just a sociopath, because he is that, but he's also abusive. He's also like next level con man. He's also potentially having hallucinations. Does he really believe in this weird nirvana thing he's telling her now at this point? They even find a woman he previously did this to, but she got out early enough, but not without him getting her pregnant. So now she has this guy's kid, but they don't even talk anymore. And she's like, yeah, it sounds like something he'd do. And you're like, oh my God, like it was very intriguing to me. So obviously you ended up watching it. I see the 4 fingers that went up. So
yeah. No, this is your fault that I watched this one. You had on Morgan last week, and you talked a little bit. She was talking about how she was looking forward to the Obi-Wan show because of the woman, the Bonnie, who was an actress who plays Aunt Beru in the Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith briefly, and
she was in that MXVIM cult.
Yeah, Nexium,
Smallville cult.
Right, Smallville cult. It's amazing that's when you think about it, and it leads into what we're going to be talking about Bad Vegan, that people remember that as a Smallville cult because of the actress who was on Smallville.
Well, I think there's please, I could be wrong, but I want to say Kristen Kruk has come out since then, because she's on Reacher now.
Yeah,
there's
video
for a little bit.
Yes.
And she quickly got out of there, but she was even in that thing for a little bit.
There's footage, because I still think that you saw a different version.
I think I saw a different documentary.
Yeah, but Morgan had kept trying to, she's trying for months to get me to watch The Vow, and I finally got around to watching it. I mean, it's a 9-part documentary, so it's a task to watch. But yeah, there is like a brief video, old footage of Kristen Kruk being at one of the meetings there with Allison Mack and whatnot.
Another Smallville actress,
right?
If you don't
and
know
yes,
who she is.
Right. And Allison Mack is out. She was very high up. She's very culpable in a lot of things that happened, but it was this guy that was the center of it, but yet people think of the woman. Isn't that interesting? And
I'm glad they don't use her name necessarily. They don't call it the Allison Mack cult. They just say Smallville cult. I mean, yes, I understand what you're saying, but thankfully they don't just call it the Allison Mack cult.
Right.
That's unfair, because she, much like this woman, I should say, I'm sorry, from Bad Vegan, you can see how someone can become stuck or attached or mentally handcuffed, for lack of a better term.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I want to be very careful when I talk about this, because sometimes I watch documentaries like Bad Vegan or The Vow, and I'm just sitting there, and you listen to like the teachings that got these people hooked on stuff, and I'm sitting there going like, you out of your mind? Like you're absorbing this bullshit right now. And I say this as someone who may have actually been attempted to get catfished this week, by the way.
Oh,
I haven't told you about that yet.
No. Maybe afterwards we'll talk about it.
Yeah. But again, it's like I recognize it right a minute. I'm like, get out of here. It's not even that interesting a story. But when I was watching Bad Vegan, like I was trying to watch it again, like kind of like through her eyes, and watch how this guy might have manipulated her into believing this kind of stuff. And the longer it went on, like the more it's just like where she just keeps giving money or pouring money out and following this guy around. I mean, I keep thinking about if the documentary didn't go far enough. Because like by the time I got to the end, like there's sort of one big twist that I think you should see coming in like episode 3.
Are you talking about where they're interviewing the one person? I told you that. I go, oh, there's this twist that pops up, and you're like, what? That one got me.
That one got
you.
One
of the people that there's, I'm not going to tell you the twist.
Yeah.
They're talking to all these other people, these sort of third-party people who are involved.
Yeah.
There's a guy that was kind of also being manipulated by this man. He was like sort of not chauffeur, but like a second in command. But he questioned a lot of stuff. So you're talking to this dude who ended up saving all these phone calls because she didn't want to save them on her phone. So this dude was saving them for her. There's that guy. There's a couple of the people who worked in the restaurant. And then there's this other guy who's like an IT guy that worked for the guy that worked for the sociopath.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not a doctor, but it certainly sounds like a sociopath. And this IT guy, and this sort of revelation happens at some point in the show, and you're like, it hit me. Clearly, you may have saw it coming, but I didn't. And when it happened, I was like, oh my God. And it happened, and I was like, oh, that's fantastic. I immediately texted you. I'm like, if you haven't watched it yet, wait till you get to this part, because you're going to get it. It's like, that sucked me in even more than I was already.
Not only, and again, not to, gin up my detective prowess or anything like that, but not only did I see it coming early on, but then I knew exactly the moment they were going to reveal it. Oh. They're leading up to it, because the early on when you start talking to this guy,
I don't even do it, because if someone's listening, I don't want anyone to get ruined.
I'll just say that there's information that was wanted to keep them safe, kind of stuff. And I'm going like, come on.
I got that.
You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I know what
I'm like, mean. And again, I don't want to spoil it for people who want to watch it. But that was when my red light started flashing. I'm like, okay. And then the way that the build up to the twist where he is reading something and it's supposed to be in his voice and the way that he's responding to her through email.
Yeah.
I'm just like, not him. That's not him.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I thought of a couple things.
Uh-huh.
One of them was what it was, but I didn't lean on that one. I was leaning on something else. And I said, I said, something seems weird. And I was telling her, I said, it's either this, which was what ultimately what it was. But I focused on something else, and I go, it's either that or this.
Yeah.
And I was close. Yeah. Because it does kind of dovetail into the other possibility. But I didn't focus on the part clearly that you did. Something seems off, and everyone who will end up watching it will see that something seems off. But then when it's revealed as to what is off about that part of the situation, as far as the conspiracy or whatever you want to call it, when this sort of thing happens, it got me. But the whole thing got me. I really enjoyed it. Even there's a little bit of a famous actor who supposedly knew this guy.
He's not having a good year.
Yeah, no. But again, it could have just been a casual conversation on Twitter. He liked what the guy said, and he has a response. And this time I was like, oh, well, this guy eats here all the time. The other guy must be a good guy too. Well, turns out maybe they didn't even know each other. It was just a casual Twitter conversation. She's borrowing money. It starts out at, you can convince someone to give you $200. Like, hey, look, remember I told you I'm away. Well, I'm somewhere where I can't be. Can you please, not cashier's check, but, whatever, like, send me money.
Right.
It's $200. I just need it. And, if you can get someone to give you $200 whenever you want it, well, the next is $500. We give you $500. Oh, thanks. And I appreciate it, honey. Well, then it becomes, I need 1,000. Well, 1,000 might be a little rough right now.
Yeah.
Well, you love me, right?
Yeah.
You love me. I really need this. Please. Please, 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 please. Okay. Well, then you get that 1,000. You get that thing. Well, then it's 5,000. Then it's 10,000. Then it's 100. When they start showing the checks at the end where they're like, You know, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 3,000, 8,000, 6,000, 10,000. All of a sudden, it's like 110,000, 160,000, 227,000.
Yeah.
You're like, what? She's handing him checks for what? And then you hear these conversations. She calls him out, but just to tell you how much he had destroyed any confidence or soul or whatever she had at the time. You could hear him screaming at her.
Mm-hmm.
And he has done such a good job just destroying her to the point where even her calling him out, he gaslights her, makes her feel bad, and then she goes along with it anyway. It is so cultish. It is everything you hear about all these cult-like organizations. They get people to do things based off of faith or love or whatever. Yeah. And then it's this, and then it's guilt, and then it's fear. And the fear keeps you. And that you can see the transition in her. It's this vegan-loving, nice woman who seems incredibly sweet. All her workers are so loyal. They barely make any money in New York, and they love her to death. They're I'll stay here, even when they're not getting paid. Some of them work. I think they said some of them worked for like 3 weeks without pay because they're like, she's going to come back. She's going to pay us that money. We love her so much. And by the end, they're picketing it out front of the thing and then she's a criminal. They go on the run. And the ironic thing, and I'll end it here, but the ironic thing is she gets caught because the dummy sociopath orders a fast food pizza from a fast food joint off the credit card they're tracking. And so the vegan gets caught ordering like a pepperoni pizza with cheese on it from like Little Caesars or wherever.
Domino's.
And they track them that way.
I'm glad you brought that part up because episode 3 has that twist. Okay, so you build up to the point you're gonna go like, okay, episode 4, like what the hell? How are they gonna end this thing? There's got to be something else coming out. And I've seen way too many of these documentaries that sort of, pardon my French, blow their load a little too early in their space. They space these things out so much that they don't know how to end. The Vow really had that problem. When you watch The Vow, which I didn't even think there's a second season coming this year of that show, which follows like the trial and stuff like that. But that show, like, it didn't. I don't want to get into The Vow, but I thought like the last 3 episodes was really kind of like, okay, you're really kind of spinning your wheels a little bit here. 4 episodes is a lot better speed, but the pizza thing for me was the most interesting factoid about this entire thing, only as a journalist, because the way that it wasn't her that ordered the pizza, it was him.
But they crapped on her.
Right, and all the newspapers, that was their headline. Vegan gets caught by ordering pizza. What a hypocrite. And then, of course, the drums up public thing, like, oh, the fucking vegan hypocrite, you hippie, you're ordering a pizza, you're full of shit. And I'm just like, wait, stop here. Stop right here and spin this off into bad journalism right now. Like, I want to go into that. That's not what the documentary is about, but that's where I wanted to go late in episode 4. But here's my problem.
Real quick.
Yeah.
And I am not defending what they did, because what they did was horrible to her.
Right.
Okay. Let me preface this. I'm not defending them. But it would have been hard for them because it's her restaurants, her employees picketing her with her name on the signs. Her. She's famous, fall from being famous. To then go, 2 fugitives on the run get caught from ordering a pizza. Or Bob, who nobody knew, finally gets caught after being on the run. I'm not justifying what they did.
No.
What it should have been, famous vegan restaurateur caught as a fugitive with her fugitive boyfriend.
Right.
That guy who ordered a pizza. How ironic.
You don't even have to mention the pizza. The pizza is only there as an opposite for her. That's all it's there for. It's not even yes, it is the thing that...
It is a fact, though.
It's a fact.
They ordered a pizza. And the
Well,
pizza's what got them caught.
Right.
He ordered. Yes,
he ordered the
right.
pizza because they were both in two different rooms. Remember, they were in two different rooms. She was in the clean one. He was in the shitty one.
Yeah,
and
the pizza was pizza's in his room.
Pizza's in his room.
Yeah, not even in her room.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't think the documentary. I don't think it even asks her like, "Did you order a piece of pizza?" Like the doc. I don't.
No, she says. She says, "I didn't even eat any of that." Yeah,
she does say that. Okay.
Yeah. And not only that, when they caught her, I think she was like 87 pounds.
She was not in good shape. Yeah,
I mean that's eating because she couldn't find anything good to eat.
Which is the other thing that was happening in Nexium, where these women who were part of the really specific sex cult part of it were being told, to to anger away your calories or to wish away your calories and stuff like that. And they were all getting skinnier and skinnier and skinnier as a result of that.
Stress,
so you can see that
stress, abuse, verbal abuse.
Yeah. And again, I'm not trying to diminish entirely what she might have been going through with this guy. And it's easy for any of us to sit on the sidelines and go like, you're not smart enough to recognize this. I mean, you get caught in that web and that cycle. It's hard to get out of. And sometimes it's just because it becomes so routine. You don't recognize the moral certitudes, the good and the bad, what it's doing to you, how you're feeling about it. It just becomes part of the routine. It's like, yes, honey, I'm going to do this. Yes, honey, I'm going to do that and whatnot. And that's just how it comes. But I'm not entirely convinced that she wasn't in on the whole thing.
I don't think you can't say she wasn't in it in the sense that she's culpable because she did move the money.
Yes.
She gave him money.
Yeah.
But I think by her being able to show it was done under duress, it was done under severe mental abuse, it was done under I think her father says at one point, the whole thing starts. She wants to borrow money for the restaurant to buy it out of the other owner, I think, and that other dude helps her.
Right.
Says, look, just pay me. The guy's like the nicest guy in the world. Gives her like $200, $2 million in debt, and just is like, pay me when you can.
$5 million. It was
this other
$5
dude, not the sociopath, this other guy.
Yeah.
And she's like, thank you so much. And so she works towards it, and she's finally doing it. Even I think it was her father that said, look, was she maybe a little bit opportunistic where this guy says, look, yes, you're investing money in me, but, in a couple of years I'll be done with all this, and we're going to have riches beyond what you can understand. And maybe did she see a way out of her $5 million debt by marrying this guy? I think it's even her dad that says that could she have been, not greedy, but like wedding out of
her mom.
A wedding. What?
Might have even been her mom.
Her mom wasn't in the documentary. She was.
It wasn't.
I think she'd passed away.
Her sister, maybe.
Sister was one of. I think it was one of her family members said it. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And so they even kind of call her out. Maybe she did it out of convenience. Maybe it wasn't a marriage of love. Maybe she did kind of see like, well, maybe this is my way out of this debt quicker than I'm doing well, but it's going to take me a long time. And maybe this was like her way of getting out of it. So. You can't say she's 100% not culpable. Even her parents or her family says she may have done this out of convenience. But it is clear based on those phone calls, the money she's giving this dude at that point is not because she's like, it's not one phone call where she can trick us all and be like, there's 100 other phone calls and now this one, she's like, well, I don't want to give you this check and you need to give it to me. And then she gives him one check and goes, see, all the checks were like that. They have hours and hours and hours of phone calls where he's just beating the hell out of her mentally. She has no other. I mean, yes, she has a choice, but he has gotten her to the point where she feels she has no other choice.
Yeah.
And although I kind of see where you're going with that, I'm on her side. 99.
There you are.
Well, 99.5% of the way.
Yeah.
And then the documentary does something to us. At the very, 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 very end, they show her she's going to go and there's some consequences for her actions, and you think, well, it's over. It's done. Okay. Well, this is a bad story, and it's interesting, and wow. Come out the other side, and she's going to have some consequences, but what are they? Whatever. And then the phone call happens. And somehow they got audio of that phone call. And then I'm like, so at that point, you have two things to say, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can either be the person who goes, see, she was in it all along. Oh, she was in all, even though you've heard those phone calls.
Yeah.
You can't deny those phone calls. And there's
No.
a lot of them.
Yeah.
And you go, well, she was part of it. Or you say, right? And you look at it and you go,
Yeah.
this is just how much this man has control of her mentally. He has her soul. He has her intellect. He has her love. He has everything, to the point where, yeah, I'm going to face consequences for what we did. Yeah. Well, it's nice talking to you. Oh, yeah? Yeah? Is it over? I don't know. And then I'm like, damn it. And I kind of got angry for a second. I'm like, she let it happen again. And I hope to God to this day they're not chatting. But
yeah.
I found this thing incredibly interesting. And we loved it. We ripped through all 4 episodes in a row, 4 hours worth.
Yeah, I wasn't happy at the end of the 4 episodes. I felt like I wasted 4 hours on that, frankly.
But you gotta understand, they're, and I know you do. So let me be clear. We both know, and I know you know.
Yeah.
There are people, both male and female, but majority female, who are stuck in these situations.
Without question.
Where men have
just
taken control of people, women's lives, wives, girlfriends, coworkers, whatever.
Yeah.
And done this to them to the point where they mentally do not know anymore how to get out of it.
Yeah.
In some weird way, she probably still loves this guy who was the most miserable person on the planet to her.
He calls him
worst human being.
And like the first 10 minutes of the documentary, after they played one of the phone calls, they have her in the current interview situation, because there's actually another interview they show of her, but then the current interview situation, and she refers to him. She's like, I can't believe I gave all this to this motherfucker.
Yeah.
That phone call happens after that.
Yes. Time wise.
You know, so again, it's one to me, it's either she's not entirely innocent, and I kind of fall that way towards it, that sometimes I don't want to diagnose this too much, but either she's not entirely innocent, or the documentarians are making a cheap trick and playing it off that way, which makes for a more interesting documentary.
They said it was the date. They said when that phone call happened.
Yeah.
They said it was after everything else was done.
Yeah.
And all the other phone calls, unless they faked that phone call, which as far as I know, there's been no accusations that they're faking that stuff.
Yeah.
It happened.
Yeah.
So that phone call happened. So anyway, hopefully we've intrigued you enough. I'm telling you, you got to watch this thing. It was great. 4 hours. You can rip it off in a Sunday if you're bored. It was very entertaining and terribly interesting. And again, I kind of call it cheesy. It's not like the splitting of the atom and Oppenheimer's view. Of, it's not that kind of documentary. It's about a con man who just terrorizes this woman, marries her, steals all her money, terrorizes an entire section of New York restaurants because he's a lunatic.
Yeah. As I told you, because I texted you after I'd watched the show.
Okay.
I said, you kind of seen one of these documentaries, you've kind of seen them all.
Yeah.
Doesn't
mean it's not entertaining.
Well,
were you not entertained while you were watching it?
What is this, Gladiator?
Were you not entertained?
No, I was interested because I wanted to see where the story took me, and then once I got to that twist, then I started going like, okay, now I know, like, how much did I want to put into the horrific thought that this woman's just an idiot,
But once you hear the phone calls, you couldn't possibly feel that way anymore, could you?
Because here's the thing, and again, this is not apropos. Every situation is different.
I understand.
And normally, because you keep using the word cult, and this is why I wouldn't refer to this as, abusive relationship. Sure, Okay. The way I wouldn't refer to it so much as a cult, because usually the cults, certainly the ones that we've seen actual footage of and have seen documentaries of, and I've seen many of them on different cults. Usually the people at the forefront of those cults have a certain charisma about them.
See, but
this guy
said he did.
Well,
initially
he turned into like a 300-pound, Yankee fan basically. But yeah, and yes, and they say in the at the end of the first episode, yeah, by the way, this jackass didn't want to have anything to do with this documentary.
Well, of course he's not, because he looks like an ass.
Right, exactly.
He's an abusive asshole. Like, of course she doesn't want to be part of this.
But it's just, I mean, again, it seems like once they get to the point where it's just like, because you get drawn into this bullshit story too about him being a special forces guy and all this kind of stuff. When he starts, because there's a point where it's like it seems reasonable to an extent, and everyone just kind of goes like, well, like you said, like, well, he's a special forces guy. You're not going to be able to just look that up in a library or whatever. But at some point, he just becomes Bill Paxton in True Lies, where he's just bullshitting to get Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah, but there's an example. Jamie Lee Curtis doesn't get got. Unfortunately, there are people in this world that get got by...
She was getting got. In that movie, she was getting got.
But yes.
And she was allowing it to happen. She wanted that adventure in that movie.
Okay, fair. There are people that go even further. And will give you their car. Will give you their house. Will give you their money. Will give you their, ultimately, their freedom they will give up. Their livelihood, their love, their freedom, their passion, their soul, ultimately, to a person like that. It's sociopathic behavior, which is exactly what cult people do. They bring you in with that little bit of charisma, he's a spy, and he's this, and he's that, and it gets you involved to the point where they get you hooked. And then once you're hooked, then they start to take advantage of you. When you start to fight back, then it becomes fear. And that's exactly what this dude at NXIVM was doing. It's exactly what... I'm not saying he's a cult, because he only had one follower in this case, but he's more of a con man. But it's still
he's a con man.
It's still sociopathic behavior. It's all kind of the same thing. But it is a classic abusive, gaslighting, horrible con man situation. I mean, it's horrible.
It's that one piece, because it's that one piece that we've talked about early on that happens that makes me... that there's a cloud over this entire thing, where she does meet this guy and then they get married kind of off the books. They kind of get married quickly, and it's just kind of a nonchalant thing. And even when people say, "Hey, you got married," and she's like, "Yeah."
So again, that's why I understand why you're saying there is some weirdness, because even her own family member says, "Yeah, this might have been out of convenience, not 100% love." But it could have been, this guy's interesting. He says he's got some money. We travel places. We do these things. And it's exciting. And then all of a sudden it's not fun and exciting anymore. But it's too late to get out mentally. And then when he gaslights you and tells you the only thing you love in the world, even over your restaurant, is your dog. And he says, you and me and the dog, where we're going, you'll never have to worry about him ever again. I don't think he ever quite says, we'll be immortal. But he certainly alludes to something like that, and she wants to believe so bad that her precious dog, the only thing she had really that she loved, will be with her forever. You would do anything at that point, and he convinces her that he is the path to that anything.
Yeah, I mean, she's not Anakin Skywalker. I mean, it's just it's that. Because the way I view it in the simplest of terms, I think that she did marry this guy looking at her at a convenience, looking out for herself.
Okay, fair.
Okay, and yes, and you can get yourself sucked in, and it's kind of like a classic sort of gambler's scenario.
Literally, the guy's a gambler.
Literally, that's what we find out. But you bet $50 on blackjack or whatever, and you lose, and then you lose 100, then you lose 200. It's like, if I can just get this one thing, I'm gonna do it. And I think that's her mentality through a lot of this. It wasn't so much that she was being abused, like she wasn't smart enough to recognize because even when in those conversations, you hear her kind of like, yeah, like I don't feel her. He's being abusive, yes, but I don't feel like she's that scared of it. I think that she's being talked into realizing that this is going to be a good thing for her to keep giving this money to him. And if I keep making the bets longer and longer, eventually I'm going to win the lottery, and it's going to hit off. It's going to clear off everything.
I think that's.
I don't trust her. I don't trust her.
Well, again, I was with her 99 and a half.
Yeah.
The second I heard that phone call at the end, I didn't feel that she had tricked me in that. She didn't Kaiser Soze me at the end while she's walking on the sidewalk.
She's not that smart.
But you know what I'm saying is she didn't Kaiser Soze everybody, and she's walking on the sidewalk with her dog, and all of a sudden she starts walking normal. I didn't think that happened. What I did was I felt bad for her. I felt bad that she desperately wanted this sort of forever life with her dog. She desperately wanted the high-flying romance that she never got. She desperately wanted to be out of her miserable life because at that point, it's fucking miserable. And the only two people who know, because now she's getting nothing but abuse in the real world, the only safe house, and this is what sociopaths do and abusive people do, is those people all hate you because they're haters. I'm the only one who really loved you.
Right.
And he did it again on the phone. And she's like, well, and kind of a laugh like, oh, she's doing it again.
Yeah. Well, that's
so I felt bad. I didn't feel tricked by her. I felt bad for her.
Yeah.
Because of this asshole that did this horrible shit to her. And thankfully he served some time. But like it wasn't enough in my eyes. But I'm telling you, I think everybody would really enjoy it. Anybody who likes crime dramas or crime documentaries or crime stories, there's a little bit of that. There's a little bit of and I use this word in a bad way and not on purpose, but like a love story. It's not love because he's abusive and he's horrible.
Right.
But she wanted love. So I'm saying that is that she desperately was alone. She wanted love. So there's this this wanting of her to be loved, which turned horribly tragic. And this guy took advantage of it. And of this person who had fame and a name to themselves, who had really done something with their lives, and this other asshole shows up and helps her destroy it all. And I was just so sad when I heard this thing at the very, very end.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt so bad for her. Yeah, but it's interesting. I like this person. That he doesn't trust her. Yeah. So yeah, it's just horrible. But yeah, it's horrible. But what I mean by that is, the documentary is really interesting. I'm not quite sure what Mrs. Fun's typing something. I'm not quite sure I get the sentence. Can you retype it?
Is she suggesting I don't trust her? Yeah, I don't.
Oh.
Is she making a shot at me?
Maybe.
Feel bad for her, not mistrust her. You feel bad for her. I don't.
Yeah, I
don't think we got the incomplete story there. Let's just say this. I don't think we got all the phone calls.
Okay. I would say I felt a little, not mistrusting of her. I felt a little wronged when even the family, because I was even thinking it, when that family kind of confirmed that, like, well, it is interesting, and I tell you, I don't know. You should watch it. It's a good 4-part documentary, and I guess we'll go on to the next thing, which is what we're looking forward to.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this really great miniseries about the Brett Kavanaugh trial that's coming up. I'm joking, of course. Yeah. What am I looking forward to? It is a lawyer show, actually. I'm looking forward to the final season of Better Call Saul. That is going to be airing on April 18th on AMC or AMC Plus, the streaming service, but it's also going to be available on Netflix, I think, 1 week at a time. Better Call Saul, which is the prequel to Breaking Bad with Bob Odenkirk, who's the latest season was delayed because he had a heart attack on set. And so he had to go through some recovery time for a while and then came back and filmed the season. And everyone's saying that it's the way it's finishing up, it's turning into an all-timer of a show. And I still need to catch up on season 5 because I can't even remember. I had it on my TiVo for a year or something like that, and I never got around to watching it.
I never even started that.
We've seen Breaking Bad, right?
No.
Okay. Well, then you got a lot to catch up on. Yeah. So Better Call Saul is what I'm looking forward
to. Mine was going to be, it still is, New Beginnings. Things have changed pretty drastically for me this past week on many fronts. One of them being my job, another being finances, another being family stuff, a bunch of things. And the idea is beginnings are hard and change is hard. And but from that can come good. And I'm looking forward to the possibilities of everything, of careers, of time, sleep, all kinds of things. I'm really looking forward to it, although it sucks and it's hard to adjust. But I am really looking forward to it in many different ways. I literally started something a couple days ago, and it's an adjustment, but so much can come from it. And I know other people are going through that too. New beginnings and changes, especially after COVID. We've all had to change a lot. And from then, now being back out and about, being with people, getting back out into theaters, getting back out in the public, going back to work. Some people have been at work for, at home for the last 2 years or more because of this whole thing. And going back, meeting new people, changing things. I'm just looking forward to the possibilities. And, we'll see where they go. But I am looking forward to them. So, which I wasn't a little while ago. I really wasn't. But now that it's happened, I'm finding good things in all this new stuff.
Good.
So,
glad to hear it.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully it gets even better, right?
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
So, all right. Well, won't have you next week, and then 2 weeks then. I don't know who will be here next week yet, but I will find that out pretty soon. Might jump back to John. He was the first person to pop up on here. So,
see if Sarma's available.
Yeah. So we'll 2 weeks. All right, everybody. Thank you again, as usual. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye, everyone.